logical, futuristic, positive policies that work for us.
Hello there, everyone. Welcome to the World of Moas podcast. And on today's episode of Reflections and Reactions, I have Adam Williams with me. Adam Williams is the chair of the Young Social Democrats for SDP, which is Social Democrat Party, and he's going to talk to us about generally like what is the youth, where is the youth of Britain headed, and why SDP is a good option for them to guide them to a better future rather than all the other options that are out there that have the potential to corrupt them in the worst ways possible or dissuade them so that they leave the country. So those are the two options over there, and then SDP, a better future over here. So how are you, Adam?
Well, thanks for having me, Momus. Yeah, I'm good. Yeah, settling down. Got my council campaign going at the moment, which is, taking a lot of my time. We delivered 1,000 leaflets on Saturday. Just gone.
That's good.
We ran into my opposition as well, which was quite funny. But they're quite nice. They're independent, so it's not like I'm dealing with the Liberals or Labour or the Tories. So they're good people, I think. They've both got 100% council attendance record, so you can't knock them for that.
Sign.
Yeah, so it was nice to talk to them. But yeah, so I'm busy,
Okay, so before we start our conversation about the youth, tell us a bit about yourself, a bit of a background about yourself. You're still very young, so you probably won't have that much of a background. and how, why did you join SDP and how you ended up, sort of thing, just to give a flavor to that, to the other youth of this country, how they can come into it.
Yeah, so I'm 27. I was born in 1997. So just as Blair was coming into power, I emerged into the world. And all of the consequences that have come of that, I am now facing. So yeah, I mean, where am I? I'm a church-going Catholic, which underpins a lot of my political philosophy. I was a Conservative Party member for my sins from about 2017 till about 2022. I would have left in 2020, but I couldn't figure out how to cancel my direct debit. So I ended up just, it ticked over a bit.
Most of the parties do that, don't they? Like,
yeah,
it's so hard.
It's very difficult. They don't make it very obvious. Yeah. And I just was like, right, I have to do it once the whole Truss Sunak thing kicked off, and it was all just a bit messy and coup-y. It felt like a coup, and I wasn't happy with them for a while. I think William said it before, where he was unhappily in the Conservatives, and I was as well. Like, I made the mistake of thinking that they were a Conservative party. They're not. They're a Liberal party. Yeah.
There are no Conservative parties.
No, no.
Apart from SDP.
Apart from us,
the actual Conservative party.
Which is why I found. So I've always described myself as a Red Tory. Now, I don't know if you're aware of Philip Blond. Yeah. He wrote the book 2009, just before Cameron really kicked off, and that I listened to him speak at the 2019 Conservative Party conference in Manchester, and I was like, wow, that's like exactly what I believe in. And then once I left the party, I started dabbling in a bit of Blue Labour. I've got Lord Glassman's book, and I read that as well. And that's sort of my political philosophy and where I sit. I'm like a Red Tory, Blue Labourite sort of character.
That's where most of the public is, to be honest.
Yeah, it is. But they're relatively unknown terms, really, and people wouldn't describe themselves as such because a lot of them is just common sense.
Yeah.
It's just your average everyday to-day Brit thinks of what should happen.
And you know what, like, actually it's important for people to know it's common sense in relation to Britain and their nature, like, and the nature of the Brits, right?
Yeah.
Because it won't be these policies may not be common sense to, let's say, an American common sense person, right? Because it doesn't fit their nature. Their nature is very different, their terrain is different, their access to resources is different, they have to organize themselves differently. This is why I always tell people, like, when it comes to conservatism or any kind of political stance, it depends on culture to culture, country to country, and according to their needs, sort of a thing.
Well, yeah, exactly. America is obviously always going to be the prime example because everyone's always going to talk about the Republicans and the Democrats.
Mm.
And they're just completely different. Like the Republicans are conservative. Like the traditional Republican is just free marketeerism, Reaganism, right?
Exactly.
And that's not conservative.
Thatcherism.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and the Democrats, well, I don't even know what they are at the moment. I think they've got a bit of soul searching to do until they can figure themselves out. But, you know, moving away from America, the SDP for Britain we're British conservatives. You know, and it's sort of, Britain's unique in that sense. And I'm going on a bit of a tangent, but this is where I sit politically, is that Britain's unique in the fact that our traditions are quite heavily wedded into our genetic coding in a way. You know, I'm a monarchist. I always have been. I support the crown. And I believe that the crown and the people and the land have all worked together. They've all got different parts of society to move into. And it all works quite nicely. And unfortunately, I think the last 30, 40 years have kind of seen a bit of a disintegration of that. Starting with Thatcher, moving through Major, Blair, and then the Conservatives just continued it, you know, and then now Starmer, well, you know. So that's how I ended up in the SDP, because it was coming up to last year's election. I was in like February time, and, you know, even though I'd left the Tories, I was still tuned in. I was still like want to know who I wanted to vote for, and my natural inclination was Reform, because you know, this was before Farage really kind of took over.
Ben Habib and Tice time,
yeah, exactly. So it was still in the Tice, and, you know, I was kind of thinking, do I go for Reform, because I don't want to vote for the Tories because they're useless. I don't think I could ever vote for Labour because, again, you know, I don't like what they're saying. The Liberal Democrats never. The Greens know I like building things. So you know, so it was only really Reform who really stood out. And then so I just did a Wikipedia deep dive. Literally, I was in the car with my mate driving down to see my girlfriend, and I just found the SDP through Wikipedia. And I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And I saw that on the Wikipedia page.
Found a good thing through one of the most unreliable sources.
I know, yeah. I saw on the Wikipedia page that John Cleese was an SDP member. He's not anymore, I don't think, or whatever his relationship is to us. But I was like, oh, I like Monty Python, so let's see where this goes. And I found the new declaration, which this is what I got here. And I found that, and I read that, and I was like, I'm in. Yeah. Just signed up then and there the minute I read the new deck, and here I am a year later, chair of the YSD. So that's pretty much my political journey. I come from a very conservative family in terms of voting. You know, like they like Thatcher. It's up to them. You know, that's fair. That's their point. But I diverged from that now. But I've always been on like the opposite end of free marketeerism. I've never really.
I mean, free market is sort of like, it's sort of the carnival when everything is going around, right? So when everything is on, the rides are on, everything is having fun, that's a free market, right? But a free market cannot sustain you when the carnival finishes.
No.
Right? When the carnival finishes, that's when it starts crashing. Like, there's nobody to clean up. Everything is like, you know, turned to shit, because, you know, you haven't built any resilience towards it. You're just living in that cuckoo land of like, oh yeah, everything will be fine. I've heard a lot, like I said yesterday as well on the live stream with Paul Thorpe, that, you know, I heard someone make an argument for free trade by saying, oh, it uplifted the people in Bangladesh, right? It's like, who gives a shit? Like, you know,
I've seen that.
In grand scheme of things, we can say like, okay, it's good for them, but at what cost? If it's coming at the cost of the people over here, I'm not sure if that's a moral argument to make.
No. I saw this. It was a discussion about T-shirts being made in Vietnam versus America. And they were saying, oh, yeah, but, you know, those Vietnamese factory workers need it. And I'm like, yes, but hang on a second. Like, it's slave labor. Yeah. Let's be honest. They're paid a pittance, if they're paid at all. So, and it's kind of sort of that thing, like, who picks the cotton? Right? Yeah. That's literally what the argument is who will pick my cotton for me? Yeah. Which is justifying modern slavery and awful working conditions because they make T-shirts for £2 an hour.
Yeah. But I would say, like, even if they were working in the best of conditions, right? Like, but you had to pay less because of the whatever exchange rates and whatever, and just worked out that it was cheaper over there, but they were living a wonderful life and stuff. you're still taking away the opportunities from your own people
Yeah.
to have a better life. You're destroying your own, like we have done, like in the north, we have destroyed those towns.
Mm-hmm.
People are drugged up now because they have no purpose. They're losing the sense of purpose. Other nefarious bad actors from other countries have moved in, bought up those places. The Arabs buying it, the Pakistanis having their drug gangs over there, whatever. Those things are created, that you're creating a situation for people to take advantage of you. It's a security risk.
It is.
You should be resilient.
And this is something that I think really drives my my political journey, is that people we're not cared for. It feels like we get forgotten about, and it feels like they don't care what happens to us. And I think that's really coming into the mainstream now. I think we're really seeing it, and I think it's bubbling under the surface, and I think the next 4 years it's going to erupt.
Yeah.
Because there's only so much a people can take. And when you've stripped away all our industry, you've stripped away our services are being stripped away now because they'll outsource it to India.
Yeah.
Our public services are awful. Our tax bill's going up, and there's nothing for us. And yeah, you can't. I don't think it's a moral argument to say, oh, a factory worker in Vietnam or wherever it is making the t-shirts is getting a job. Yeah, but what about the people here?
Yeah.
It'd be a completely different story if we were talking about industry that specifically could be located in Vietnam.
Yeah.
And that's what actual trade should be. Is we live in Britain. Okay, what have we got? Right, we've got good beef. We've got historically the wool trade was a massive thing. The medieval wool trade between us and the lowlands was massive. And we've got shipbuilding, iron, steel. British steel used to be famous.
Yeah.
And then we go, right, here's what we've got to offer. Okay, we look around and we go, right, okay, this country's got something that we don't have. Let's say, I don't know, spices or something. Right, let's trade with them because they can produce it domestically in massive quantities. Or coffee. There you go. Perfect coffee, right?
Yeah.
But no, now it's gone where they believe it's cheaper to throw everything abroad and leave the rest of the home isles to just rot.
And you don't make your economy dependent on things that you can't grow or you can't manufacture as well. Right? So you could say, like, okay, at the moment, Taiwan is the only one of the sort of free nations where we can get the chips from, where we microchips, where we use it in every single thing that we have right now, right? But that doesn't mean you just let it go on and on and on. You should try to get that into your own country, to make chips of different sorts. Do a deal with Taiwan, so to make it profitable for them. There's so much profit that they can actually have if we shift their manufacturing over here. Other examples we can use as well. Why would you depend on a particular thing that is being created in Thailand? Why is your whole life dependent on that?
Yeah.
As well, what I've heard from free traders is oh, but we get so many things now, we can buy so many shirts now. It's but why do you need 50 shirts? Why do you need that 956th item from Amazon, which you have to take a loan for to buy, which you think you need, but you actually don't need it? Why do you need that? Why can't you live without it?
I saw a quote pop up on my Twitter the other day. Let me just find it. And it's from, I can't pronounce his name, the Russian bloke, Dostoevsky, right? And it's, the world says you have needs, satisfy them. You have as much right as the rich and the mighty. Don't hesitate to satisfy your needs. Indeed, expand your needs and demand more. This is the worldly doctrine of today. And they believe that it is freedom. The result for the rich is isolation and suicide, for the poor, envy and murder.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. It's we don't need this level of consumption. This level of consumption is a blip in human history.
Yeah.
The majority of human history, we've never had this level of consumption. Even at the height of, say, the Roman Empire, or any of the Han Empire in China, there was never this level of consumption.
It's wasteful.
It is. And I've been thinking about this myself, and I was like, I'd rather buy some really good woolen British-made clothes that last me for years,
like it used to be.
It's sort of like the the shoe fallacy, where it's like the poor man's shoe, where he keeps buying the cheap shoe but it keeps falling apart, so he keeps having to buy more of them.
Yeah.
Whereas if you buy a nice pair, make an investment in like a good pair, they last for years.
Yeah.
So you actually end up spending less.
Exactly. I mean, that's what it used to be with leather jackets and all those jackets as well. You had that for your lifetime, and in some cases you would pass it down like they were that good, right? And like that's what I'm seeing, this sort of like panic going on in America as well when Trump has put up tariffs, reciprocal tariffs over there, and they're like, oh my god, like it's destroying destroying the stock market. This is like, okay, how were you expecting to win? How were you expecting the West to win without any form of short-term suffering to achieve that win, right? But you were thinking, oh, we're gonna go on as normal, as usual. We're gonna keep enriching our enemies, which is China, our competing enemies, China and Russia, or whatever the countries, and keep India, whatever. These are competing markets against the West. We're gonna keep enriching them, and for some reason, we will win as well.
Yeah,
it's like, it doesn't happen. Suffering, you have to take the suffering to actually be able to win in the long term.
It is one of those things, because then I that kind of argument regarding the tariffs, I'm just like, well, we're suffering already.
Yeah.
And for no purpose.
No, but they are not. Like, you know, the people who are complaining, the elites and stuff, right?
I do find it kind of ironic that a lot of people on X at the moment complaining about like the stock market crashing were literally like a few months ago calling for that guy who shot that CEO to be like a hero. And I'm like, okay, guys, pick and choose.
Yeah.
Either you're pro the big businesses who are losing the money, or you're not. Right?
This is the problem with liberals.
I know. Liberalism, I could never...
individual. Like, whatever is in my benefit is the only good thing.
Yeah, I could never describe myself as a liberal ever. Like, I just couldn't. Like, it's one... As an ideology, it's just so contradictory and self-destructive, and in this day and age where you can pull up Twitter receipts, you know, it's just like, why would you? It's just they just don't think, and it's like, yes, okay, guys.
Children unwilling to grow up. They're teenagers stuck in that mode, and they're like, you know what? They've seen the, like, you know, the expanse of plenty that they have had. They want it forever and ever and ever. They just don't want to grow up. They don't understand that the part of being the actual human experience, the actual good human experience, is not like you know, one of those sort of like Greek images of a guy sitting or like laying down on the sofa and being fed grapes and stuff. That's not it.
Yeah,
that's not the human experience. That's the odd occasions when you win like crazy, and that's very exceptional circumstances where that happens. The usual human experience is actually working, suffering, and learning from that suffering, and not like keeping in that suffering, but actually improving the lives of other human beings and stuff, and like growing together. You know, we can't get away from suffering. We are trying to minimize suffering. It's like, well,
it's very Catholic of you.
Well, I'm married to a Catholic, so there you go.
There you go. There it is. Yeah.
I'm married to a Pole, so Polish people know very much about hard work and suffering.
Oh, of course, yeah. I've got a lot of great respect for the Polish. They're one of Europe's workhorses.
Exactly. You know, you gotta have, like, you gotta understand, like, you know, people need to understand like the suffering, especially the younger people need to understand the importance of it, because it teaches you a lot of things. It teaches you that it makes you more resilient. It makes you understand, like, okay, you can't take everything for granted in life. You have to work for it. You have to, like, you know, be thankful for the little things. That's how you're thankful. If we have these 70-80 shirts, right? Their shirt example. If they have that, how will I ever be grateful that I have clothes? It's just a given. It's a human right then, isn't it? Housing is a human right. Like, nothing is a human right.
No, I know. Human right. I think this is something about philosophically, human rights don't exist.
Yeah.
They are an invention, a good invention.
Yeah.
But they are an invention. They're not naturally a thing.
No.
You know, like, there is no human right that naturally occurs, except we're born and we die. Those are the only two human natural rights, are life and death. Like, we live and we die. and everything else is, I think it is taken for granted, because I think a lot of people take sorry, I know we've gone on a bit of a tangent here, but a lot of people. So I'm a historian by trade, and there's this book called The Whig Interpretation of History.
I think so. I've read it.
Yeah, by Herbert
Yeah.
Butterfield. It's from
Yeah,
the
yeah.
early 1900s, but the Whig school of thought is liberalism. It's looking at history as a linear, straight line towards a progressive modern democracy, and that these things that we have are inevitable, and they will always happen. We will always end up with liberalism and a progressive nature because that's just the path of history, which we both know is not true.
Yeah.
You know, but that I think that is what a lot of people, liberals, when I say people, liberals, see their worldview is that they are inherently correct because the path of history proves it so, that we will always end up in this liberal democracy, and that's just not true.
Yeah.
It's just not true. And that's
And
something.
even if that was true, right? Even if that was true, why don't they go one step ahead and see why that liberal democracy then crashed?
Yeah, you know, exactly. Like liberal democracy has been in existence for, I'm going to be generous and say 100 years at a push.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to be very generous with that. And, you know, and it's not done great.
No.
You know, yes, the last 30 years arguably have been great from certain angles, but we're now seeing the consequences of what effectively has been 30 years of kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
So, and I think in Britain that's very pertinent because we still haven't accepted the fact that we're not an empire anymore. I think that can has consistently been kicked down the road.
Yeah.
And our political elite still just can't get over the fact that we're not an empire anymore. Not so much in the fact that they think we're amazing and great. They don't think we're great. But more the influence and the power and the state of the nation. They still think we're like heyday British Empire in the 1910s before World War One, and it's just not true.
Yeah, exactly. And this is like what annoys me about Conservatives and Reform Party as well, because their version of correcting everything is returning to is sort of like reclaiming Thatcherism, right? And it's like, well, that didn't fix anything. That is what destroyed. That is what put everyone in this country on the path of destruction. Because it took away the manufacturing, it took away the mining industry, it destroyed society, like the whole communities and stuff. I'm not even gonna talk about Falklands Islands. Like that is a separate matter. Even if Tony Blair was in power, he would have fought, for Britain to retain those islands, right? Even that, I believe, that doesn't mean that Tony Blair is a good guy.
No.
It's just that circumstance was handed over to a person, and they reacted how they were expected to react, right? So that doesn't mean like everything that she did was a good thing. Actually, everything that she did was towards the destruction of communities.
She got very lucky with the Falklands. Because I think if the Falklands hadn't happened, the SDP Liberal Alliance would have absolutely trounced. And Thatcher's legacy is very inherently about the Falklands. Like people, it's very skewed because of that. And let's be honest, the Falkland War was actually kind of her fault anyway, because she cut the defence spending to the bone, which is why we only had so many Marines on the island at the time. I can't remember how many. I don't think it's like 30 or something. I can't remember. But
that's the history of Conservatives, isn't it? Like they create the problems and then they solve the problem they created, and claim to be heroes for it.
Yeah, I think the last Conservative Prime Minister we had who really could be like an actual Tory would probably be Harold Macmillan. I think probably he was a bit slimy in the way he dealt with Eden and Suez and stuff, but overall his premiership was not awful. I mean, he's very famous for saying we've never had it so good. And Britain then, it's true. And I say he was probably our last real Tory Prime Minister.
But like what is the mood in the youth? Right? And not like the youth as in like under 21, because I can't expect them to have a full rounded opinion on politics anyways. There's a few rare people when they come on like social media and TV, but they're not representative of the entire youth, because what I find is they're so disconnected with what the real thing is, because for them the past, like our past, my past, and even your past is a very distant past, and they can't even connect to it, they can't relate to it, right?
No.
How are, like, because I see a lot of them being attracted to Reform Party. I guess it's just because of how they're communicating, choose to communicate on TikTok and stuff like that. I don't think so. It's like really on policy basis.
No. So young people, and I don't want to generalize because I'm very protective of my generation, but I think it's safe to say that vibes are sort of the more leading political direction rather than policy.
Yeah.
Just because of the nature of how society is at the moment, we're kind of tooled towards short, instant content at the moment.
Shiny things.
Yeah, which is another discussion.
Yeah.
Like for a lot of my friends, it's, you know, none of us feel like we can get on the housing ladder. You know, like I'm 1997, so I'm the first Zoomer. And we struggle to get on the housing ladder. We struggle for work. You know,
people up till 35 are struggling with that.
Yeah, we were sold the idea that university was the path to unlimited opportunities.
Yeah.
So when I was in sixth form, so we're talking 2014, 2015, that's what we were sold on. We were sold, you are the brightest of the bunch, you're going to uni, you'll get a degree and you'll get a job straight out of the wazoo, and you'll be into a career for the rest of your life, and you'll have a house and a family. Bollocks.
Exactly.
Respectfully, bollocks. You know, like it's not true. And it's just difficult. I mean, there was the Guardian of all people put out a poll the other day, literally last week, I think last Monday. And I was reading it on the way to the council to hand my nomination forms in. And the Guardian said that the majority of young people no longer care about social media or social justice. It's more about housing, jobs, finances. And I think that's fair. I think that's valid. I think it's very, you know, social justice takes...
It's very human of people.
It is. And a lot of people like to pretend that young people are just all about, whatever the next social like justice movement is, you know. And maybe maybe in like 2016, 2015, you know, but we need to get away from that. And I think that's where Reform are still stuck. They're still stuck in that 2016 era.
Yeah. I think that even I would say even the kids on the left who are protesting and stuff, I think so. It's and it's the same goes for the people who are on the far right, the actual far right of things. It's an amped up resentments, right? So because the system has failed, right? So they need to get their anger out somehow while not engaging with their personal and social responsibilities, right? Because that's very difficult for people to realize that a lot of the problems in your life are because of your mistakes, and they could be mistakes of your parents and stuff, but now you're an adult after 18 years old, you're considered an adult because you can do adult things. It is your responsibility, and they don't want to admit it's their responsibility. So they either go down the route of extremist far rightism, which we are seeing with some certain parties online, which are doing it, you know, who have helpfully done arranged pylons on me as well, which was fun, like stupid.
I read some of those.
Yeah, exactly. So because they're using the resentments of people, right? And the same thing is on the left, on the far left, and because they want the world to burn down, right? Because if the world burn downs, right, like how we see in the movies, which there have been, you know, a lot of these movies, the apocalypse movies, right? When there's a nuclear apocalypse or whatever, there's been so many series recently as well. There's no social or personal responsibility anymore. It's everyone looking for themselves. It's a chance to reset your life. Either you die or you get a chance to reset your life. There's no rules anymore.
Yes.
Right? That's their dream, because that's how much their resentment has taken them towards it. And another reason as well is, I think so, it's a lack of Christian religion within the West. That's why the far right and the far left are going towards destructive modes.
Yeah, I mean, the far left and the far right are more similar in ways than they'd like to admit. And they take that resentment, and, you know, like, I'm half English, I'm half Portuguese, with a bit of Welsh sprinkled in. You know, my family came over here from the Caribbean in the 60s, 70s. My dad's family's been here for forever. You know, so I'm half Portuguese, right?
Yeah.
Like, do I not belong here?
You're a traitor. Throw him
Like,
out.
I'm a mutt. I'm a race mutt.
Yeah.
Like, my girlfriend's Cypriot.
Yeah.
And ethno-nationalism
Yeah.
is a nasty tool
Yeah.
that I think, yes, I understand to an extent, and I do. I
It's
do understand.
important. It's important to understand that because ethnicity matters.
It does, and this is something a lot of people don't talk about. And it is important, and I understand the gripes and the complaints, and I get it. I mean, I spent 26 years living near Birmingham, so I get it. But the way that it's used as a weapon is just not.
Yeah.
See, I would describe myself as a robust civic nationalist, but civic nationalism can only work if you have civic ethos that you implement and you enforce. These wishy-washy British values, right?
Yeah.
They're not real.
Yeah.
They're this like Blairite invention of like tolerance and stuff. And even now we know that's bollocks because they arrest you for a social media post.
Yeah.
But a robust civic nationalism is that if you come here legally in this country, you work, you put the hours in, you settle down, you integrate, and then you'll get people complaining like, oh, the myth of integration, it's not real. I would disagree with that. I think that there is quite a lot of examples of integration. I mean, there was the Rishi Sunak debate, right, about that. And yes, he might not be ethnically English, fine. But like the man went to Eton. Like, he's like the epitome of like the imperial legacy.
Yeah.
So a robust British civic nationalism, which the SDP offers. And yes, I think there is a distinction to be made in the fact that there is a difference between English ethnically and British culturally. Like there is a difference.
A huge difference.
And I think, that is a conversation that a lot of people are uncomfortable having. And it's not ethno-nationalist to say this, but the English are an ethnic group. The Scots are an ethnic group. The Welsh are an ethnic group. Yeah. The Irish are an ethnic group in the same way that, you'll have all the various different groups, and I can't remember them off the top of my head. Pakistan, who are different ethnicities, India, Africa, France. You've got Bretons, you've got Occitanians, you've got and the Wallonians and the Flemish. It's important to recognise that ethnicity and nationality aren't necessarily the same thing. The problem with the mass immigration is that you cannot have. If you have a multicultural and a multi-ethnic society, the ties that bind aren't there. So you have to have a monoculture. And that's robust civic nationalism for Britain. You have to have British, and then you can have multi-ethnics under that. Fine, not a problem. But it has to have a monoculture. Otherwise, it doesn't work. And this is
a proper robust civic nationalism also works with us understanding of the importance of ethno-nationalism.
Yes.
Like our ethnicity as well, right? So because once you understand that, you realize like, okay, we can have a good civic ethos within our ethnicity, because you need good civic ethos within your ethnicity. Otherwise you create so many traitors like Starmer and his friends, right? But also you realize that you have to be against mass migration, because if you have mass migration, there's no way that you can maintain any sort of civic ethos.
No.
So the country has to be in majority the same ethnicity or similar ethnicity, or people who have assimilated into that ethnicity, right? Actively assimilated into that ethnicity. That the debate about Rishi Sunak, what I dislike about that was that people are not recognizing this thing, right? So Rishi Sunak's parents are Indians, right? He was born over here, and he also made the active decision of marrying an Indian, right? So that is a rejection of the native population, sort of a thing. Like, I do not want to assimilate into you. I'll live in a parallel society amongst you. I'll culturally be of yours, but I do not want to assimilate into you ethnically, right? So this, for me, is an issue. So on those basis, I can never call that man an English person, because he has made no active decision, right? You compare that to someone like Ben Habib, who is mixed, right? So there is an active decision that went on with his father. They thought, okay, I will assimilate in that sense. because I can't assimilate, but my kids can. So my kids are nearer now, and then their kids will be nearer, and then their kids will be nearer, and eventually we'll come to a point where we'll be indistinguishable from the native population. But if you keep on living in parallel societies, right, for what we've seen with Pakistanis as well, 4, 5, 6 generations can go by, they'll still be ethnically Pakistani. And then, like, well, why are you making that active decision, of of not assimilating? That for me is an issue which, again, it needs serious conversation. It needs to see where there are nefarious intentions,
Mm.
where they are just group preferences and stuff, where we can maintain those group preferences with less migration, reducing the number of people that are there so they're not effective. Where there's nefarious intentions, which mostly are within Islamic groups and Muslims and stuff, well, let's get rid of that out of the country so they don't become a problem, because as more and more that they grow, they'll have more and more issues within the country, right? But we need grown-up conversations. What we don't need is people going on internet and putting memes and stupid things, which stops the sort of discussion. And what happens when people do that? The establishment then goes, okay, see, this conversation is so toxic, we're not even going to have it
Yeah.
because these people have made it so.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is not a conversation that you would normally have, and I'm a bit. I get a bit. I'm wary about talking about it because the toxicity regarding the far right and the way the far left treats ethno-nationalism, because they'll do ethno-nationalism for like Palestine.
Yeah.
Like Layla Moore and the Lib Dem MP who tweeted about it being our land, and I was like, you're a British MP, like
Exactly.
like,
And that's the problem that I have, because those people, like, are preferencing like a lot of the Pakistani MPs, like that we have, the ethnically Pakistani MPs in British Parliament that we have, they all are advocating for Palestine.
Yeah,
It's like,
and
well,
this is a thing for young people, because it is an attractive cause, and I understand why a lot of young people look at it and go, yeah, this is great. But then I'm like, what about Armenia?
Exactly.
What about Sudan?
Yeah.
What about Nigeria? What
Yeah.
about the Congo?
Yeah.
Like, we've got all of these. What about Burma? Right, that's been going on for years. It's
But
displaced.
unfortunately, Qatari and Iranian investors are not interested in promoting those ideas within our universities.
Yeah,
They're
so
only interested in that. That's how kids get brainwashed then.
so I think the thing with the youth, and the reason why these angry sort of ethno-nationalists can take advantage of how the young feel, is because the conversation about ethnicity is not able to be had in a polite, civilized way. It's viewed as toxic, and therefore
there's a lot of feelings. There's a lot of feelings and not enough facts.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just not great, really. And it's why the SDP, with our like I said, with our robust civic nationalism, and again, I'll get roasted for this by the usual suspects, but I do genuinely think, like, you integrate, like we've talked about, like banning cousin marriage and stuff like that. These policies that can be easily done to make it better.
Yeah.
I follow a guy on X called what's his name? He's from the UAE. Amjin or something like that.
Oh, I don't know who you talking about.
And he's great because he's literally like from the horse's mouth. Like, and he's like, these issues need to be dealt with, and otherwise you're going to get in trouble. We recognize that here, and we've literally, like, we're literally next door to Saudi Arabia. Like, we and
it's like these issues, especially of immigration, right? How I see it is sort of like an onion, right? So it's a layered thing, right? So first we need to take away the outer layers first, like the illegal immigrants, the criminals, and those people who are on the watch list and stuff. And SDP would be pro doing that for all of those people.
Yes.
Right. And then you see what the actual problem is. Then you try, like, and the good thing about SDP is that members can vote in and out policies.
Yes.
So you can change the policy then. Okay, we've seen the landscape now. There's a lot of people who can't integrate. We need to get rid of them, right? It might not be an active SDP policy now, but as the situation develops for the favor of the country, members can vote try to vote that in then.
Legal immigration and the number of legal immigrants is a conversation that people don't want to have, because for a lot of people, if you're here legally, you're here legally, that's the end of it. However, the sheer volume of immigration that we've had we had like, what, 1 million people last year before that? It's just not, you can't do it. And this is an issue for the young, because now we're competing for jobs even more. We're competing for housing. We're competing for social services, for the police, for the healthcare. We're competing for everything, and we're paying such high taxes. That, and it's just a conversation. And they'll be like, "Oh, you're just falling for it. You're blaming the immigrants, whereas you should be blaming the policy." I can blame both.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's quite easy. Like, people see a society and a process to abuse, and they actively choose to abuse it. William was on Peter McCormack, and he said that, it's for the immigrant, it's the completely logical thing to do.
Yeah.
For the people who come over across the channel, they pay €5,000, like 5k euros, to a people smuggler. They get brought into the UK, they get taken care of, they get straight into the social services, they get money, and then they're set up.
Especially if they are really low skilled people, right?
Yeah.
And this is something as well. Like, okay, so by the way, people should go and watch William Clouston's episode on Peter McCormack's podcast. It was really good.
Yeah.
I'll put the link over here if I can. One thing that people don't understand, like especially the left, either they don't understand or they don't want to admit, right? They think like, okay, those people are low skilled only because of their circumstances.
Yeah.
Right? No, there is a problem of capacity of person to be able to be upskill themselves, right? So these are the people who can't compete in their own countries as well, because they don't have the mental capacity to compete in the technological world. So instead of their countries actually doing something to help them and in the long run upskill their children and improve their national IQ, what they're doing is they're letting them go. They're letting them go, and they're letting them become our social problem.
Yes.
So that we pay from our welfare for them, because they will never be active members into none of the people who are coming on the boats. Let's say, okay, let's not say none. Majority of the people who are coming on the boats, right, are never going to be the doctors, are never going to be the engineers. They're hardly even going to be shopkeepers, right? Like in shopkeeping skill is actually very high. If you want to run a very successful shop, it's entrepreneurial skill. So they won't even have that. But even as working as a hand anywhere, they are unable to do that, right? There's a reason why they're coming over here for those reasons. And then along with that, there's a lot of people who are like, who they're not religiously, most of them, I don't even think they're religiously extremists. It's just that they don't have any other choice, and they don't have any opportunities, and they've been sold by the Islamists. Well, if you do that, then you can enjoy these things, right? So they're not like theologically motivated. They are motivated materialistically, right?
Like the majority of people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I think it, and the SDP recognizes this. And, we've said that, I think one thing I advocate for, I wrote an article about this a few months ago, was that the way Sweden has turned around their immigration, that they have negative net migration now. They have more people leaving the country than they have entering it. And they basically just started paying people a lump sum to go away and go home. And they repatriated them. And I think we should do that. I would rather that we foot the bill for we give them 6k or something, or whatever it is that Sweden gives them, and a one-off payment, and they go.
Yeah.
And I think because the OBR released the statistic last year, where it was 60% of immigrants are low wage, low skill immigration, and they will always end up costing the taxpayer $250,000 for their entire life. Now, times that by 1 million, and it's just logical for me, really, the SDP.
I mean, there would be other things as well that you could do. Obviously, it might not be in favor of some of the people. They might not leave. They will be like, okay, no, but I can stay over here forever. So I'm not taking the $6,000 and going back, because I have no prospect, even with the $6,000, to go back and have some sort of life, right? But you combine that with other things, and there might be some people who take the $6,000, go back, get on the boat again, and come back again for another $6,000, right? but you have to have consecutive other things
You do.
simultaneously working, where you stop the boats and stuff as well, where you tell them you're never going to have a good life. You stop giving them hotels and stuff, and you stop giving them benefits, right? So
Mm.
you do all of those things. You make it inhospitable for them to take advantage of the British people first,
Yes.
stop the borders second, and then say we're paying you to bugger off,
Yeah.
right? And never come back. So it has
I
to be in combination.
I think for young people, it's very important because it can, again, it comes down to vibes, and it comes down to the fact that we don't want to be the bad guys. We don't want to be the mean people.
Yeah. But you are being mean, but you are being mean by allowing them in, because you're being mean against your own people.
Yeah, exactly. And we're being mean to ourselves. And I think this is something that we need to take into consideration. And the SDP recognizes this, is that it's unfair to us currently. It's unfair to our children and our grandchildren, that we have to stick up for ourselves. And I think that's why a lot of young people, I think we'd suit a lot of young people, because we can give them that future where you're sticking up for yourself, you're sticking up for your future family. We want you to succeed. These are the things we're going to have to do. And yes, you could argue that they are unpleasant. However, that is humanity. Human history has been littered with unpleasant choices that have been necessary. And, it's just, and then you'll hear voices on the right being like, oh, remigration, just stick them on the boats and fly them over. And I'm like, that's just not going to work, is it? Because you could say, oh, we're going to remigrate people. The amount of social unrest, and, there's levels of unpleasantness. And there's being logically unpleasant, which is removing benefits and anything to anyone who doesn't have a national insurance number, making citizenship harder to get.
Yeah. Way harder.
Way harder. We just give it out like paper.
Yeah.
We just throw it out at people. We throw passports at people, and we really shouldn't be.
Yeah.
And
dual nationality as well. I'm against dual nationality. Yeah.
I am as well. I am of the opinion that if you're in this country and you want to hold public office, then you cannot be a dual national.
You can't be a foreign born, and you can't be a dual national. I don't agree with.
No, I don't think you should be able to do that. I don't think you should, if you're not a British citizen, I don't think you should be a landlord. I would tax remittances as well quite highly. My deputy chair suggests 200%. But I'd probably just go with 100% tax on remittances, and just, because that's so much money leaving the country. And there's a whole thing. But bringing it back to young people need to look at the SDP and think, this party wants me to have a job. They want me to have a family. They want me to have a home. They want my kids to have jobs. They want my kids to have families. They want my kids to have a home. And it's all about duty and responsibility to the nation, to the people who live here, and just having like a positive outlook. We want to reindustrialize. We want to have cheap energy. We want to renationalize the water. We want the environment to be nice, and not just in like a hippie, like Green Party way. We want logical environmentalism.
That's proper conservatism.
No fields of solar panels. No nuclear power plants. Backed up by offshore wind, tidal, solar panels on businesses and homes, so they're self-sufficient. These are all things that young people should lap up and love. And yes, they might be like, oh, but you want to stop immigration. Yes, we want to stop mass immigration. We're talking like 50k. I believe our official policy is 50k net a year. And, and that way we can really have a robust immigration system where we can bring in the best of the best, the people who want to be here to really contribute to society. Not
skills-based sort of a thing.
Skills-based, not, and then people are like, oh, but what about the NHS? And I'm like, but if you look at the amount of malpractice cases recently, it's all been foreign-born health service. And even then it's a moral argument. We shouldn't be stripping countries of their healthcare professionals.
Exactly.
So, and this is why the SDP is the perfect thing for young people, because it gets you your social feel-good feelings, and it also gets you logical, futuristic, positive policies that work for us. And that's what we should be doing. And the SDP has a real opportunity in the next 4 years to really build ourselves up, which we're doing slowly but surely. We've got the policy base. and we can just have mature conversations about issues. And that's what I think a lot of young people are lacking. And they could look towards us and go, right, these guys, I mean, we've got a youth wing, right? Reform don't have a youth wing.
No, they have TikTok.
No. Labour's youth wing got Knife of the Long Knives a few years ago.
Yeah.
In 2022, Young Labour got shanked. The young Tories are just,
Yeah.
you know, and we've got an active one. We're actively, like, I'm on the national committee. I have an active say in the running of the party. My voice is listened to, and because my voice is listened to, my members are listened to. You know, because I am their representative. And that's what I say to young people is I say, join the party. It's literally £1 a month if you're under 30, £1 a month. You join the party, you join the YSD, you get into our community. I help you out. My other members help you out. We'll encourage you to run for election, to put policy forward, to discuss, to have ideas. We have socials every month. Henry Bolton's coming to speak to us next week. You know, and we're listened to. We're respected. We're not just scoffed at. And that's why the SDP is a great guide for the young, because we're here. We're amazing. We're small, but we're fiery, as I've said on you know before. And we have the YSD we make up about 10% of the party, which is not bad for a youth wing.
That's good. That's good.
Know, we're hovering around 200, between 180 and 200 members, which is solid. I'm looking at growing it and expanding it further, of course, but you know, and I just wish people knew about us more. And we've got a youth manifesto, which I've got here. You know, that's on our website. You can read it for free. And it shows that we're a futuristic looking party. We're a futuristic looking youth wing, and that we want everyone, we want the young to succeed. You know, we don't want us to be continuously footing the bill and not getting any of the benefits. You know, we've seen the triple lock has been increased again, which means my national insurance contributions are going to go up again. We saw West Streeting the other day saying young people shouldn't go to a GP. What? Hello? Like, should I just die then? Should I, you know, like...
They prefer you to,
Yeah, you know, but who's going to pay the tax? You know, and this is the thing, like the youth need to feel like what we're putting in is being given back. Yeah. And that's where the far left and the far right are very good at drawing people in, because they give the youth a feeling of purpose, and they give the youth a feeling of, yes, someone's listening to me. My anger is justified. These things are important. But they're not, they're surface level. They're not actually going to solve the problem. And the problem is that young people want their lives to mean something. Young people want to see their lives going in a direction. And the SDP can give them that. We want industry. We want factories. We want you to be able to, I think it's a William quote, is that we want on 40 hours a week to be able to raise a family of 4.
Yeah.
Which is what it used to be.
Yeah.
You know, me and
it can be achieved.
It can be. Achieved. Yeah. It can be achieved again. And that's what we want. We want young people to work, to feel like their work will get them something substantial. We want them to be able to have families, to own homes, and to have a nice life.
Yeah.
And that's all we want. And I just wish we had the money and the airtime that Reform or the Greens or the Lib Dems have, because we offer something with such substance that isn't just surface level dopamine. Yeah. It is actual long-term success for the young of this country. Yeah. And that's, I think, you know, that's where I'm at. And I'm very passionate about it. And I just hope that people will look at the SDP off the back of this.
Only for like under 30s, right? Paying £1 a month.
Yep.
That's nothing. Like,
I know.
I think so everyone should join up, even, you know, even if they are curious, like, or they don't fully agree or something. At least you have a party where you have the opportunity to put forward your thoughts and stuff, and you won't be ignored. You're not a member in a private limited company.
Yeah.
You're actually part of a party, right? And you can help shape that party. So if you don't think like there's something not up to your liking, more people can join up of similar mind and say, okay, you know what, we'll put up a case of why we want this to be more robust over here or there. It will help the party as well. £1 a month for people under
I know,
30,
£1 a
30
month,
like,
£1 a
it's
month, and
nothing.
after 6 months, you have full voting rights and everything, and that's
What
it.
more could you want?
I know
What more could you want? It's
it's
a perfect
mind-boggling.
party system.
It is, and
Yeah.
and we've got great counsellors in Leeds.
Mm.
Wayne, Rob, and Emma are amazing. They do such good work. They're a prime example of what the STP could do.
Yeah, exactly. And I was talking with David Batney, whose episode I might have actually put out
I think you
before
have
this
now.
goes out.
Yes, yeah.
So I would have put that out before I put your one out. So he's as well, like, but this will go out before his elections in Doncaster. He's standing
He
for
is.
mayor. Amazing candidate, like 26 years of service in the army, so much experience in business and logistics and stuff like that. A real person,
Mm.
he was actually a real person who understood how to get things done. These are kind of candidates that Reform or any other party can't really produce.
No, and
Yeah.
myself, like I tried to join the military, got turned
Mm.
down for eczema of all things. But that is really the epitome of how many young people struggle, because I was
Mm.
turned down because the private company that did the medical, Capita, didn't want to shell out for health insurance. So my dream of a career in the military got completely shafted. And I can imagine that so many other young people
Yeah.
have had similar experiences in different careers because of different reasons, where we've been shafted by the system. And none of the political parties offer a solution to us except for the SDP. And like you say, our candidates are amazing. They're down to earth, proper people, not career politicians. And William, right?
Yeah.
What a guy! Like, as a
Yeah.
party, I'm so proud to have him as a party leader, because he's so calm, collected, knowledgeable, and he's lovely. I've met him a few times in person, and he's been very nice. He's listened to me, and and that's a really nice feeling to have. I can't imagine Farage doing that,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
I mean,
Starmer.
a person who has no scandals against him, he doesn't have any skeletons in the closet and stuff, like, a person like that you can be proud to call, okay, yeah, he's my party leader, and hopefully someday he'll be a prime minister. You're proud to say that, as a, like, that guy can represent you,
Yeah.
and not have like streams of news against him. It's like, oh yeah, he had like this sex scandal or that. I can't imagine William having any sex scandal, but but
No.
exactly, like, you want a person who's respectable, not who's popular, who doesn't have any knowledge, who have only surface level knowledge. That person can't lead you. You need a respectable and knowledgeable person to guide
Yeah.
us through this time that we have.
Yeah, and that's the SDP really. Our philosophy is solid. It's respectable. It's slow but steady. We just need a bit more fire, I think, and we'll be set to go.
How are you planning on reaching more of the youth, without the investment and stuff? What are your like, what can you do? Can you reach out in certain places, like, because there's a lot of places where you should keep the politics out of, like church and stuff like that, but they could be after sessions and stuff, of like, getting people from there, or like, other places, other community centers and stuff like that, colleges and whatever. How are you planning, like, how to reach out, like, like very short sort of, like, grabbing them in, and then they
Yeah, I mean, it's not an easy one,
Mm.
because obviously I'm a volunteer, so my time is limited. But what I do at the moment is I'm very robust with getting people into the WhatsApp community we've got. I get people in, I make sure they're welcomed, that we engage with them, that we always say hello. It's very small things, but they add up. Retention is the most important thing.
Yeah.
And in terms of like reaching out to groups and stuff, we did. William was at a Warwick University event a few months back. I reached out to them. We got a couple of members out of that. We had the London event with Lord David Owen the other week. I managed to get a YSD group there, which was good. So it's showing people what we do, how active we are. I really want to ramp up our social media presence because at the moment I got elected in January. So I've had a bit of I'm in my 4th month term, and social media has been pretty weak, I will admit, because it's just me. But I'm sitting down with my executive on Tuesday, and we're going to be really robust about, we've got a big agenda, and we're going to be like, right, we need to decentralize off me because it's trying to find the people. You find the right people for the job, which I now have. Took a while, but I got there. And again, that's the part of the problem with the STP is that we're all volunteers. None of us are paid yet. Hopefully we'll have some paid stuff at some point.
But it also shows like that's how much people believe in it. That
exactly. And so I'm sitting down with the executive, and we're going to be really focusing on our marketing and pushing our marketing, maybe even invest a bit of my own money in some Facebook ads or some Instagram ads, get some posts, reach out there, try and lure some more people in, like, come in, this is what we've got to offer, come see it. I want to move away from Twitter because people on Twitter are already, like, they're already there. They've already got opinions, and they've already got probably a political party allegiance. So you're kind of screaming into the void. Whereas Instagram is where everyone in my generation's on. Facebook, not so much anymore, but they're still there. TikTok, I need to crack Instagram and Facebook first, and then TikTok comes after that.
I feel like TikTok is an evil that will have to be dealt with. Like, we'll have to go into it because that's where the public is.
Yes, it is something I'm working on. We just don't have the content for it. Whereas with Instagram and Facebook, I can put out like pictures with captions. Whereas TikTok, I need videos, and that's not easy to get. Like, especially when you're voluntary. Like, I can't just be like, right, guys, we're going to grab the camera and the microphone, which don't exist, and we're going to go down.
How about creating an SDP Substack? And asking different people to contribute.
Well, we've got.
They don't have to be members or like, but they have to, like, they can be ones who are friendly to SDP and then create that sort of.
We've got a YSD Talk blog, and we have got an SDP blog, but again, it's just.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I mean, Substacks give you, like, what I've seen, Substack gives you a lot more reach than blogs and stuff.
Yes,
and also, like, you can have other contributors, put up articles and stuff. That could be something that attracts, like, not really youth, like, but after over 25s and stuff into it.
Yeah,
that could be something.
It's something. At the moment, though, I'm focused on increasing capacity amongst the YSD, because at the moment, like I said, in a way that unfortunately organically happened, a lot of it has been centralized onto me. And I've become keenly aware of that fact because I went down. I had a chest infection for a couple of weeks, and I was just not able. And and things kind of slowly ground to a halt. And I'm like, no, this needs to change. So I'm finding the talent that I have at the moment, utilizing that talent correctly, and then growing it. Basically, So if anyone listening out there is a videographer, please.
I mean, I would say, like, anyone who's out there, especially if you're under 30, £1 a month, like, just join up, see what it's about. Okay, fine. If you don't like it, you can leave or whatever, but at least do the part. £1 per month, like, £1 is nothing. You would have already spent that before even, like, you would have spent many pounds while even listening to this video.
Exactly.
So join up. That's all I can say. Put it out there. Hopefully a lot of my subscribers have been joining up SDP or intend to join up SDP.
I mean, if you're under 30 and you've got questions, I've got an SDP email address, adam.williams@stp.org.uk. Very straightforward. Throw me an email.
I'll put it underneath as well.
Throw me an email. My ex has an inbox. Send me a message, anything. And I will happily talk to you and try and get you on board if you want to. And so that's it, really. Like, give us a look.
Awesome. It was good having you, Adam.
Thanks,
hopefully we'll do that again. And hopefully we can increase the SDP numbers and have a brighter future for the youth. It won't happen in an instant. It will take time. People need to realize that as well. It took a long time to screw up this country, and it will take some substantial time unscrew it. So
Yeah, my closing statement is we're in a multi-generational struggle.
exactly.
If you're in my generation, Gen Z, we are the vanguard of that struggle. We have to put our foot down, and we have to say enough's enough. And if we want this country to continue and to survive for our children and our grandchildren, then we've got to start it. We know I may not fix it in my lifetime, but if my kids and my grandkids can, then it's worth doing.
The important thing is not kicking the can down.
Exactly. We need to catch the can and fix it.
Yeah, brilliant. All right. Thank you, everyone, for watching. I'll catch you next time.